All right, so big news today with Robinhood, the crypto exchange side of things. What they're doing is going to affect either the US market, could this also affect global exchanges around the world, as well as some of the assets that are looking to be delisted later this month. We're going to be breaking down to all of this for you guys today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Getting into the top lead story right there, coming with Watch Your Guru there. And if you are a Robinhood member, you most likely got an email this morning that basically said the same thing. Robinhood is delisting Cardano, Polygon, and Solana. All of that is happening toward the end of the month. Each one of these assets will no longer be tradable. If you have the asset within it, they'll go and sell it automatically at market price, convert that to US dollars into your spending account. So this is a big blow, I think, for not only these assets, but I think crypto in general, because this is a huge scenario that there's two things that are happening here. You've got, of course, the traditional new kids on the block, which are, Coinbase, Gemini, Binance US, etc., crypto.com. Many of those, of course, are under fire right now with the SEC. Robinhood, I think, also has a little bit more in, there's more stakes in the game for them. Obviously, as a broker-dealer and a licensed broker-dealer, because they're obviously doing stocks, etc., they're a little bit closer to Wall Street, I think, obviously, than the rest of these players out there. So most likely, this is the conservative path, I think, that they're taking to go in that direction. You can kind of see here. Also, remember that at consensus, Robinhood Connect was dropped in. So this in itself, maybe this goes into the heap of a dead product. I'm not sure. Does Robinhood come back into the market with this when things start to get settled through Coinbase's scenario? I kind of thought Robinhood actually might go to the bat after seeing that, that hearing this week, because Robinhood was in there essentially fighting with the rest of crypto. And I felt like they might be going to bat for the industry. But in this particular case, I feel like this might just be a conservative position for them to kind of keep in line with what's happening in Wall Street. Of course, another headline right here, Robinhood joins Coinbase and said it tried to come in and register like the SEC wanted. This was done in the crypto hearing that was done earlier this week. We actually did a full video on this. If you actually have not caught this, let me kind of show you on our channel. It's this one right here. It's the Coinbase Robinhood CFTC testify. Go check that video out, because it's a good one that really goes into the scenario of how they've approached the whole process of trying to get the SEC to at least do something, which gets back into the whole issue around the SEC going through this enforcement or litigation through enforcement. And I think this is the problem that we're going to continue to face. Right now, Coinbase is the big question mark. Obviously, everybody that is out there is going to be questioning, will these kinds of tokens, these top-level tokens, pretty much blue-chip tokens, be delisted on Coinbase and other exchanges? I think that is yet to be determined. And whether or not Coinbase may start to slide into a completely different business model, at least here in the United States. Also, remember, Coinbase is now abroad, so lots more happening out there in the space. Moody's, of course, has also downgraded Coinbase, citing uncertain magnitude of the SEC charges. So they went essentially from a stable position to a negative position. This, of course, does affect the stock. Obviously, we've seen a little bit of a slide in the overall stock, but there's still people out there going in and investing in Coinbase. So I think the scenario that you have to think about is, who are those players? Well, one of them is Cathie Wood. Let me play this clip for you on how Coinbase and Cathie Wood are looking at this. Listen in.
It is unfortunate that the SEC took action against Coinbase the day after Binance, and then seemed to muddy Chairman Gensler, as he was on one of the major news channels, was trying to implicate Coinbase in the same way that he was implicating Binance. No, they're very different. There are questions about what's a security and about staking. Those are the two questions that Coinbase is facing and Binance is facing. But most of the other questions around Binance have nothing to do with Coinbase.
All right, so a couple of things here to be aware here on this with Cathie is, I think a lot of this is more damage control for her, mainly because of what's happening with Cathie Wood herself. Cathie Wood loads up on Coinbase stock, block, and also you look at her whole approach toward, if you go to Cathie's arc, Coinbase is still in there as well as Square. And of course, this is the scenario. Very possible that we could start to see a lot of liquidity start to exit into some of these other alternatives out there when you think about PayPal, Square, Coinbase. Now, the question is whether or not this is going to hold, because you look at right now, Square, her position is continuing to climb. Right here is this nice little lip right there, but she's moved up a lot here in the last year. And then you've got Coinbase right here, still climbing right here as the price obviously is descending a little bit, obviously because of the action with the SEC. So does she know something, or is she completely misguided? I think a lot of people are looking at Cathie right now and just wondering what is in it. Now, maybe the other scenario with Cathie Wood and ARK Investments is they're just in too deep. That'll be the real question on how this plays out. Or she could be the most brilliant, and that is buying these as these things are distressed, because most of the people, when you're buying in distressed markets like this is typically when markets are made. So big opportunity. This came from Watch a Guru just in. Binance, of course, US suspends all US deposits following the SEC lawsuit. Obviously, you can't get money in or out of Binance US. So hopefully, this was weeks ago. We've been talking about this with Binance. And of course, I think most of you already realize that self-custody is the only way to go. Anytime you're in exchanges, those should be for a very short period of times for your trade and then moving into your exit liquidity, whether it's through Bitcoin or whatever asset you're holding on self-custody, and or back into US dollars, which you should also redeposit into your bank. So it's just, good practices out there on how you're dealing with this. Binance US basically came in and made this statement: SEC has taken extremely aggressive, intimidating tactics in its pursuit of ideological campaign against the American digital asset industry. And I think obviously they're hitting pretty heavily. The key here will be if Binance US completely changes into a crypto-only platform, meaning a swap or a DEX of sort. Is that going to be their destiny here in the United States? And obviously, we know Binance being one of the largest companies out there globally, largest crypto exchange. And of course, they also are hitting into a cycle right now where they're opening up an entire new market with what's happening in Europe. I'll talk about that in a minute with MiCA. Further in the news, you had Swan Bitcoin in the news now with new partners. Their big claim here, of course, was the fact that they were changing out right here starting May 26. Swan client assets were transferred to a new custodian Bitcoin and trust company in Fortress. They also took a conservative step and included a Prime Trust snapshot. This is moving out of Prime Trust, which of course is the whole issue that's occurring here within the markets in general. So remember, Prime Trust is also related to Binance US. So this, of course, happened. And if you followed the tweets from Corey, right here was his statement: you should have a one-time buys back by tomorrow and then recurring purchases by early next week. This, of course, was on June 8th when he made that statement out there. So as you can see, there's markets and scenarios and companies being affected right here in the US in a big way. I think the real question is, what is at stake here? Is this one of those scenarios that we're just starting to see? And we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, is the process of elimination. And I'll kind of explain that because there's quite a few that this could be rolling out to. The others that play into this, of course, are Crypto.com and Gemini. So if you're in Crypto.com, Gemini, again, some people out there are suggesting that you move your assets, obviously for your own safety. And kind of like me, in the scenario of when you need to trade, in most cases, I just leave US dollars on. I'll, for liquidity aspect of being able to get money in and out, and then make a trade, and then of course go into self-custody, and it's that simple. That's a great way to do it. Now, self-custody problems that we've had, of course, with Ledger and those kind of scenarios has started to shift the wallets around. This has been kind of a whack-a-mole issue around the crypto markets. But at the end of the day, I think this is how these markets will expand. The key here is the United States seems to be the culprit of all this. Now, remember, the United States has the most to lose if crypto truly starts to do an uptake in a global, capitalist society. And that means that the U.S. has to be able to control this. Much like China, when you think about it, they exited out. They just let it reopen in Hong Kong. A lot of stipulations, but the fact is it did reopen. that usually means that they're just simply in a position where they can get that under control. Now they've got a little bit more analysis around it. Europe, of course, has also made that big leap forward with the MiCA legislation, which I think is where we're going to see the crypto mecca become something very powerful, and that is in Europe. London could become the new financial center of the globe around crypto. London, Singapore, possibly, but I think London. If you think about what London and the UK, England, have been dealing with for the last 50 years, remember that the sterling pound at one time was a global reserve asset. I think they might see this as an opportunity. That's why we've seen MiCA rush to Parliament, and they've moved so quickly into getting this done, which is pretty impressive. Here's Austin Campbell, who right here, just to give you kind of some insights, he is, of course, over at Columbia Business. And he makes a statement here that I think is pretty telling right here. My prediction, SEC wins some very narrow victories on historical implementations of staking as a service, which they will turn into a PR campaign. And they lose the rest, or in part, in whole, and basically end up on a catastrophic loss in the court of public opinion, which I think will be the big deal where the SEC has overstepped their boundary. This is already starting to play out in a lot of these hearings that we've been covering here on the channel. If you haven't been watching those, make sure and catch those. And if you like those, make sure and smash the like button. Just do it right now because it does help these videos get out there. And if you're not a subscriber to our channel, this is the time to subscribe. Right now, we are at a war in one, not only with the players that are basically kind of pulling the strings in DC, but also within the industry of how banking is done. Now, remember, Fidelity just opened up this year with Bitcoin and ETH. Likelihood is we'll see an open wallet in Fidelity at some time this year, maybe earlier. That'll be very interesting because I think that will mean one thing, and that means that we're going to see traditional finance starting to follow suit, especially when a lot of these new incumbents are basically being chopped away at the knees. Binance US, Crypto.com could be one that gets hit quickly. Gemini could also play into this. And then you've got Coinbase maybe left standing here. This is going to be the question mark. And what does that do? It opens it up for a lot of traditional asset managers and traditional banking systems to come into this space, which is something we've talked about for a very long time. This statement right here from CZ, important dates for the industry coming up right now. MiCA has now been published to the official journal of the EU, so it's moving. June 30, 2024, right now, when the stablecoin rules will start applying. So basically, this gives companies a year to get moved into Europe, is what this boils down to. And this is another thing that I think a lot of people are missing, and this is the whole innovation flight that we've talked about many times before here on our channel of where the future is going, and that seems to be overseas. Here's U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty stated that Gary Gensler is finally saying the quiet part out loud. Biden admin wants to kill the market innovation to pave the way for a CBDC. This may be truer now than ever. Now, can they get it done in a year? But think about this. If you get market evacuation, the innovation starts to move in other places. The U.S. is and has enough gravitas, I think, to believe that they can retake a market. It's possible, but it hasn't been done recently. If you think about technology innovation in Silicon Valley, that was not a market that was taken back. That was a market that was created by the United States. So this one is a lot different. The reason is because the United States got caught flat-footed, was not ready for this, and ended up being behind the situation and not in the front of it. And that, of course, has opened up all these other markets. So they are trying to essentially do things that help get their market, meaning the U.S. banking system, institutional finance, etc., caught up on this. Here, of course, is the master of puppets, and that is SEC Chair Gary Gensler. Basically says crypto's all hucksters, fraudsters, etc. This guy is a PR machine, and this is exactly, now this to me is as good as market manipulation gets. I mean, he goes after Elon when he tweets something. Can you imagine this right here going out there and making these kind of statements around people like you and me? So in ourselves, you've just been called that from Mr. Gensler, our SEC chair. All right.
Hucksters.
All right, so let's play the
fraudsters, scam artists, Ponzi schemes, the public being left in line at the bankruptcy courts. We've seen this story before.
Okay, what a crock. This guy is just going at it. And you know, the interesting thing is he's reading from a really good script there. He has to look down line by line, word by word, which was kind of interesting. All right, here's Ross Gerber. He says, with Fidelity and PayPal firmly in the crypto business, a cynical person might say that the regulators are killing off the OG companies, in crypto, and traditional finance companies are the ones only left. So again, this goes back to the scenario. Wipe the floor, clean the dance room, and off you go to the races when the market starts to expand as MiCA and the EU start to push in, as the Pacific Rim starts to push in. So a lot happening right now. Additionally, Ray Dalio says basically the world's biggest hedge fund says the U.S. is going to issue a large amount of government debt. This gets into macro. There's still a shortage of buyers. This could also affect things in a big way on the global market for liquidity, which is one of the things we've talked about many times of how liquidity could really start to shift here in the short period of time. Here's Joe Consorti talking about the Fed's new emergency loan facility. These are the kind of shenanigans that are going on right now, guys. Basically, right now, banks are turning 50 cents into a buck without other banks even know that the bank is in distress at the same time. And if you look at some of the data on this, this just shows you fifth consecutive week right now, Fed lending to banks through the Bank Term Funding Program has edged up to a new high, hit $100 billion as of Wednesday. So this is like the sharks eating their own right now, for sure. Kobe Easley letter simply stating there's now a 26% chance that the Fed does get another raise coming in. I believe we might see another quarter point coming in. This is the first Fed meeting since then that they started raising rates. There's not a clear consensus. So this is getting really shaky on whether or not we could see a pause for the first time. I'd love to know your opinion. Do you think we're going to see a pause next week on the FOMC or not? We will be live streaming that for you guys. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see all of that as we're going. Don't forget, of course, Mr. Gensler is only 1,091 days away from getting fired. Let's hope. Here was my wrap up on next week, which you guys should be watching out for. The Hinman emails get released. Most likely, the SEC, of course, has to respond to Coinbase's writ of mandamus. You've got a custodian potentially now that are saying that there could be Sol, MATIC, Cardano launch huge combined efficiency. This is my speculation. These are the ones that were delisted from, of course, Robinhood. And then the House Financial Services hearing starts as well. They actually moved that up a day. And then we also have the FOMC meeting. You also have the central bank summer meeting coming in. So, man, guys, we have a ton happening in the next 10 days around crypto in general, but globally, how this all sets the term for the next 6 months to a year as we roll into the next election. So a lot going to be happening. If you guys are not part of our Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. It's very simple. It's also another way you get additional content and our own podcast over there on the Diamond Circle. And best of all, the one thing you need to do is follow me out on Twitter and DM me. Let me know. If you have a question, I'll try to answer it the best I can. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.